Hey, how you doing? Hopefully you're having a smile-filled day. If not, I have a few to share. All right, I'm going to share screen since I said share, and I'm going to make this guy a little bigger for once we start doing math. Okay, you stay up there. You're in the corner. All right. I was going to do this background, but then once I saw those smiley faces. And this has fractions and different colors. I thought it was kind of cool, but yeah, I couldn't pass up the smileys. Okay, so what we are doing today, as you can see in the title, we're going to work with fractions, decimals, and percents, or the title. I can't figure out which way I'm pointing, whatever, or the title here on the screen. We're just basically going to go to a Word document. And I'm going to write notes and talk about it and show you some methods. And let's just practice over time, okay? I keep getting in the way of that now, but I'll try to stay over here. So you will see the abbreviated FDP, converting FDP or just FDP. And I always think of fire department, police department when I see that. But fractions, decimals, and percent, we're constantly going to be changing in math from one form to another, because like for example when we get into adding fractions, which is coming up in one of the next lessons, you can't add them unless they have the same bottoms. Oh, that's not a math word, not bottoms. What do you call the bottom of a fraction? Denominator. So you're supposed to have the common denominators before you can add or subtract fractions. Okay, so we're going to need to know how to convert back and forth, and sometimes you might want it might be easier to convert to a decimal and do it that way. Okay, and in business and sports and lots of other things, sometimes we need to know percents. In grades, ooh, man, almost to the 3-week progress report, guys. Grades, first look at the grades. Of course, you can always see your grades on the homeworks and quizzes and IXLs. All right, so let's look at the first one. I'm just going to start, I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to show both fractions, fraction to decimal, fraction to percent. And then decimal to fraction, decimal to percent, and then percent to fraction, percent to decimal. So there's really 6 pathways, okay? And there's a couple pictures that I'll share with you and go over, okay? And then at the end, I'm going to give you a little practice, and I'll do some examples, okay? So here we go. I'm going to write on the screen. Let's go with green today. Okay. So let's start off with a fraction, and it says we're trying to get to, there we go, I was trying to get that to leave. If I did 1/2, okay, a lot of this I've already memorized. That's the same thing as 0.5, okay? And give me 1 second, guys and girls, ladies and gents. What we're going to do today is become capable of converting back and forth between fractions, decimals, or percents, okay? The way we are going to do that is through a number of different strategies and methods that we will practice and utilize until we gain in mastery. I'm trying to use big teacher words, okay? All right, so fractions. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I have a little bit more room to write. I want to try to do 2 quick, easy examples for each, okay? So for fractions, a common fraction most of us already know is 1/2. And a lot of us may know, oh, that equals 0.5, okay? You've just memorized it from a lot of usage, but how does that happen? Well, I've tried to tell my students that a decimal is a mini fraction. So it really just means 1 divided by 2. And where I taught before coming here, they called it, that would be FILO. First number goes in, last number goes out. So for this one, right, for the line, first number, the 1 goes in, second number goes out. So you would do this. First number goes in, second number goes out, okay? Now 2 does not go into 1, so it's a 0. And then you got to put a decimal there and a out of 0. 2 goes into 10 5 times perfectly, evenly, okay, with 0 remainder. So that's why it's 0.5, okay? Now, one other thing you could say instead of FILO is when you have 1 over 2, you could say TIBO, okay, top in, bottom out. Now, some of the 7th grade Morse teachers, I heard them say they call it NIDO, numerator in, denominator out. So they use the math language. And there's two schools of thought. One is use the most common language you can, so even the people who are struggling and can't keep up with all the vocabulary know what you're talking about. TIBO, top and bottom, is a little easier to remember for some, but you guys have had numerator denominator for a few years now, so we should go do that. So the same thing, it's just saying the top number or the numerator goes inside, the bottom number or the denominator goes outside. So you get 1/2 equals 0.5. Okay, so all you're doing is a division problem. So if I did 1 over 10, I go top in, bottom out, or NIDO, numerator in, denominator out. 10 goes into that 0 times. I'm going to put a decimal. I'm going to put a 0 there, and it goes in 1. So 1/10 equals 0.1. Okay. Now I'm going to make this a little thinner. It's a little too thick. It's taking up too much space. And for the next problem, let's switch colors. We'll go with red. Okay. All right. So now let's look at that's fraction to decimal. Let's look at fraction to percent. Let's do the same too. I have 1 over 2. Okay. How do I make a percent? All right. Well, there's two ways. Okay. If your fraction denominator can get to 100, because percent means per 100. Okay. Can I get to 100 with this fraction? Yeah, 2 times what? It's an x, 50. Okay. So wherever you do the bottom of a fraction, you have to do the top. So 2 times 50 equals 100. 1 times 50 equals 50. And you can see that 1/2 is the same thing as 50 over 100. Now, that means 50%. 50 per 100. There you go. Okay. The other way to do it is if I had the 1 over 10. Okay. We had already converted it to a decimal earlier. So up above here, I said it was a numerator in, denominator out. So I have a 0. I use that little mark there as a decimal. Get another 0. And 10 goes in 1 time. 0.1, 1/10. 1/10 means 0.1, okay? So now you have 0.1. You can change a decimal to a percent by moving the decimal place 2 spaces. So that 0.10 becomes 10%. And then when we get from decimal to fraction, or percent to fraction, it's just reverse. You move the decimal 2 spots the other way, okay? So the moving the decimal is the most common one. Once you get it used to it and practice it and memorize it, you're just like, oh, move the decimal. And I will tell you, let me switch to highlighter. One of the students I had last year, his first name's Kanye. I won't say his last name, but that pretty much narrows it down. At our school. He said, I see 2 spots, I move the decimal 2 spots. I see 2 dots, I move it 2 spots. It rhymed. And he said he thought of that on his own. Someone else later said, well, their elementary teacher said it that way a bunch, okay? So technically, you would then have a decimal right there and you'd move it back this way. Anyway, that highlighter was a waste. Let me get rid of that. Let's go ahead and go to the next one, and I guess I can't erase. Oh, I can just delete that. Thank you for your patience. Cut. All right, let's move along. We're almost halfway. There's not a whole lot to this one, guys. All right, drawing, decimal. Let's go with blue. Okay, I'm starting with the decimal. I want to change to a fraction. So let's say 10%. Or, whoops, decimal I said. I'm getting confused. My eraser isn't working now. That's not good. Okay. So here we go. A decimal, 0.10, or you would really just put 0.1. You don't need to put a bunch of zeros. But a lot of times we would do 2 decimal spots because we're used to talking about change, okay? We go to 2 decimal points, and maybe sometimes there's statistics. Now to change it to a fraction, we said you put a fraction bar under it. Where the decimal is, you drop a 1 down. Where the digits are, you drop a 0. So technically that's 1/10 as a fraction. Okay? We did a whole bunch of those examples. Now let's do 50%. Okay? It's 0.5. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to put a line under it. Wherever the decimal is, you drop a 1, and however many digits you have here, you put a 0. So now it's going to be a fraction of 5/10. I want to rewrite those because that decimal is not going to be there anymore. Already been on here too long today, guys. Sorry for the mistakes. So that equals 1/10, okay? So the fraction is 5/10. All right, let's look at decimal to percent. And we'll have practice down below too, guys. Sorry, it might seem like it's going fast, but you'll get used to it. It just takes time. Decimal to percent now. That's a little quicker and easier. I changed the order for some reason. I don't know why. So I was using 0.1 and 0.5, okay? So to change 0.1 to a percent, I want it per 100 is what that stands for, okay? Well, I mean, I already did. There's a couple ways you can do it. The top one I'll do this way. I already know is a fraction that goes to 1/10, okay? But I want to 100. How can I get the 10 to 100? Times 10. Whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Whatever you do to the top, you got to do the bottom. So the bottom becomes 100. The top becomes 10. Well, that's 10 per 100. So that's 10%, okay? The other one is you just move the decimal 2 spots, okay? To go from a decimal to percent, you move the decimal 2 spots, okay? So that would be 50%, okay? 2 spots to the right, and the percent, you move it percent to decimal, it's 2 spots to the left, okay? All right, let's look at the next one. Percent to fraction, which we kind of just did right above, okay? 10, or well, no, I guess we did 10% and 50%. There's 2%. Change it to the fraction, we see I see 2 dots. I'm going to move it 2 spots, okay? So I'm going to go 1, 2, because right now it's 10 period, 10 decimal 0%. So the decimal, you can't see it, but that's where it is. So I'm going to have to move it 2 spots that way, okay? So I'm going to have 0.1 or 0.5. Now I was doing percent to decimal. I'm overriding the system. So this is going to be percent to fraction, because that's even easier than what I just did. Changing percents to either or is really easy. So 10% and 50%. That means per 100. That's what percent means. So you just put 10 over 100, and then you just put 50 over 100. And then you simplify. So we got 1 over 10 and 5 over 10. Okay? So that's it for that page. What you're going to do last to finish, I'm going to show you there's a bunch of pictures all over the internet. So you can go see if there's some you like. Here it shows how you can go back and forth between each one. Okay? They don't show from fraction directly to percent. They want you to go through decimal. They want you to go to decimal first, okay? And percent directly to fraction. This one tried to show, I'm going to add one thing to this. This tried to show, let me try to shrink it down so you can see the whole thing. It keeps moving the page. Let me change to a yellow, or close enough, okay? So they're showing you how to get from decimal to percent, okay? But what about percent to decimal, okay? So if you're starting with the percent, so let's say we have percent to decimal, okay? I'm trying to go from percent to decimal. I see, I did this earlier, I see 2 dots. I'm going to move the decimal 2 spots, okay? So if I started at the bottom here, if I started with the decimal place 0.5, okay, then they're saying move it 2 spots. So it's 0.5 is the same thing as 50%. But if I have 50%, I see 2 dots, I move it 2 spots the other way, and I get 0.5, okay? Just a little note on there. Decimal subtraction, so 0.5 mathematically is called 5/10. You make it as a fraction. You drop a 1 under the decimal and put a 0 under each digit. So 0.5 is 5/10. You say it, then you write 5/10, and that is your fraction. But then they also want you to simplify it. So I can divide the top and bottom both by 5. I'm just going to write divide by 5 over here. Sorry, get that click going because I'm 5/10. If you divide the top by 5, it's 1. If you divide the bottom by 5, it's 2. So it's the same thing as 1/2. Okay. Now what they're calling, there's the NIDO I was just telling you about. NIDO, to go this direction from the fraction 1/2 to decimal. The numerator goes inside the division house. The denominator goes outside. Okay, that's what this is saying right here. NIDO divide. Okay, so if I divide that, it goes 0 times. Drop a decimal there. Oops. So there's a 0. 2 goes into 10. 0.5 times equally. Okay, so it becomes 0.5. All right. The other side's a little different. So we got that fraction 1/2, and we're trying to get to 100 on the bottom. So how can I get to 100? So what times 2 can get me to 100? Times 50. So whatever you do to the bottom, you also do to the top. So 50 times 1 on the top is 50 over 100. Okay. And then likewise going the other way, going from a percent. Oh, so 50 out of 100, that means 50 per 100. Therefore, it is 50%. Okay. Now to go from 50% to a fraction, you just put the 50 over 100. Then you simplify it. You can divide it. 50 cents times 2 is $1. 50 over 100, that's the same thing as 1/2. Okay. So you simplify the 50 over 100 to 1/2. All right, that's really messy, but you can use the blank chart and write on it the way you want, or just keep it blank. You just might want to add the arrow going the other way. Okay, here's where we're going to finish, guys, and we'll be done. Practice converting. Now, you guys, I'm going to do a couple examples, but I want you guys to pause and try to work on these on your own, and then you can check the answers. Okay, so they're starting at various locations for all of these, and they even got a mixed number down here. Look at that. Okay, I did not mean to do that. Hopefully that didn't throw all my numbers off. No, it didn't. Okay, so And instead of going FDP, which is a common, they got DFP. I don't normally see it in that order, guys. So 0.25 to change to a fraction, okay, is I can take the point. Oh, it's automatically moving it to center it. The 0.25, you draw a fraction bar under it. You put a 1 under the decimal and digits under, or zeros under each digit. Now I need to simplify. 25 is like a quarter, 25 cents. How many quarters go in a dollar? 4. So 25 divided by 25 on the top, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. So there's my fraction. Now to go to percent, it's easier just to start from the decimal. You just move the decimal 2 spots to the right, and you got 25%. Plus, you could see percent means 100. Okay, this is over 100 right here. So that's going to be your percent also. Okay, there's an example. Now we're starting in the middle with a fraction. So like a live document, the words are moving around. They were scared. Okay, so, and I talked about make mixed numbers mad, because when you have a fraction in that form, and then you can make a decimal or a percent and different things like that. Well, here's the thing. If I make a decimal, guys, it's still going to have a whole number 3. So it's going to be 3 point something. Okay, so I wrote the 3 twice. So I just have to divide the 4 divided by 5, okay, to find out what decimal that's going to be. So I can put the top number goes in, the bottom number goes out, okay? 5 does not go into 4, so I put a decimal and a decimal and a 0. 5 goes into 40, 8 times. So that means 3.8 is the same thing as 3 4/5. Now they want me to change it in percent. Now you guys may not have seen this before. You know what 100% is, right? That'd be 100, okay? So like, hey, I got 100% on my test. It's hard for some people to imagine higher than 100, maybe you get a little extra credit, right? What about like 200, 300%? How does that happen? Well, like a lot of times in business and stuff, you can make far more than you spent, okay, than you invested. And so you can say you're in the whole 300% or you've profited 300%, you know? So we're supposed to move the decimal 2 spaces. So boom, boom. So this is actually 380%. You just move the decimal 2 spaces, guys. Okay, and then let's do one more, changing percent to fraction and percent to decimal. Percent to fraction, percent means per 100. Okay, now I have to simplify. I know right off the bat that 5 goes into both of those, okay, because if it ends in a 5 or 0. So 5 goes into 6 1 time. There'll be 1 left. 5 goes into 15 3 times, okay. 5 goes into 100 20 times. 13, that's a prime number. I can't divide that by any other factors, so I'm stuck. And 13 does not go into 20 evenly. So that is my answer there, 13/20. Okay. Decimal. Looks like it might be a little difficult, but they're giving me a 20 as a denominator. So TIBO or NIDO, okay? TIBO is top number goes in the division house. So that's 13. And TIBO top in, bottom out, so the 20 goes over here. Okay? NIDO is numerator goes inside the division house, denominator goes outside. Okay, so obviously 20 does not fit into 13. And that's part of the whole thing with long division. So I had to add a 0 here. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Well, I know 20 goes into 100 5 times, and there's room for one more past that. So I could go 6 times. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 2 is 12. Okay, there's going to be 10 left. Why the 10 is way down there. Okay. So how many times? I'm going to drop another 0. How many times is 20 going to 100? 5. Okay. So the decimal is 0.65. Now you could have also gone 65%. I see 2 dots. I'm going to move it 2 spots, the decimal. Okay. So that's another way to convert it. Okay. So really, percents and decimals are the easiest. You're just moving, going back and forth from percents to decimals. You're just moving the decimal place to the right or to the left, okay? So you can do the rest. Here's a 500%, see? Okay, so let me see. The middle one was fractions. 500%, this means per 100, okay? But then you gotta say, well, whoa. What numbers can divide both of those? I'm not sure. So first of all, you got to think, what can end with a 1? Like 21, 3 times 7. Let's see if 7 goes in. I have a 5 and a 2. 7 times 7 is 49, so it'd be 3 left over. That's 31, so no. So let me try 3. That's not going to work either. 3 goes into the first number 5, and there's 2 left. So it goes in 1 time. 3 goes in 22 7 times with 1 left, and you're left with 11. Okay. Well, not even that. We don't know. It has to be a number that can divide by 100 too to simplify. So it looks like we're done. The only thing we could do is right now it's an improper fraction. This is where you say the head is too big for the body. So how many times could I divide the top by 100? 5, because it's got 500. So it's going to be a whole number of 5, and there's going to be a remainder of 21 over 100. 2100. Now again, the top digit's 3 times 7. Neither of those go into the 100 equally, so we're done. Changing that to a decimal would be 5.21, because we got it per 100, so we just need to, let me change colors so you can see this. Let's go with purple. So you remember earlier where we just drew a fraction bar? We dropped a 1 under the decimal and a 0 for each digit. Let's do that backward. Here I have 5 and 21 hundredths, okay? So the decimal is obviously going to be here, or the 1, okay? The 1 is making the decimal. So it's 5.21. I'm just doing the opposite of what we did earlier, okay? So there's a few more samples there. You can check your work with a calculator if you need to. There's some long division in here, but mostly it's just practice for you guys. I'm already there. Practice for you guys. You can check with the calculators, but to get used to like moving the decimal 2 spots left, 2 spots right, okay? All right, that's going to be it for this little teach, guys. Have a great day. It was so great to see you. Well, I didn't really see you. But have a great day. Love you, miss you. We'll see more in the future.